Welcome to Friday Night Swipe with Tim Henley at Access Canna. It's the end of another really exciting week in the UK cannabis industry, and it's just such an exciting industry to be in, but it takes itself too seriously at times, and that's what Friday Night Swipe's about. It's about telling you what's going on in the cannabis industry and poking fun back at the industry. So let's have a look at what's going on currently. So, health. What's going on in the world of health? Well, in other videos we've done, we've told you about the endocannabinoid system and its potential for setting the body on a good, balanced path. So when we look at the endocannabinoid system, it is a biological system that has potential to give the body back its balance. This week, we've been doing research. This is what the NHS says. This is cannabis facts. Now, remembering November 1st, 2018, medical cannabis was legally prescribable in this country. During the rest of 2018, 2019, not much happened, it has to be said. You look at what the NHS says, it does not mention the endocannabinoid system once. This is the management system of so many of the physiological properties in the body. It's just not mentioned. It talks about addiction, it talks about all the negative aspects of cannabis. It is such a retrograde thing. It is balanced in the 1960s rather than, and to just emphasize that, I mean really to kind of take the biscuit. One of the links in there, in fact the only link to an external source, is a cancer research site. Now, the cancer research site, the date tag on it is July the 25th, 2012. Now, the cannabis industry is a fast-moving area. The research that is being done now, after legalization, is at a breakneck speed. You've got territories like Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the UK, even places like Thailand are now starting to research the medical properties. The information on the cannabis, on the cancer site, a lot of it's out of date. You've then got links to the National Institute for Health Research. Now, this is the site where you can find out about all the clinical trials going on. You put in cannabis, there are none. That's not true. There are. There are several different trials going on. You've just got to look for them. Then we come to sport. What a week it's been for sport. The start of the Olympics. Friday Night Swipe, it's all here. The Olympics has started, sport's carrying on. And what's one of the first stories we find? Now remembering, cannabis is still federally illegal in the USA. Lots and lots of states have moved to liberalize cannabis access. Most of them have medical access now. But it says that the White House is actually going to go to WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, and fight the case for cannabis. And that's because Miss Richardson, one of their prime sprinters, and several other of the athletes that are attending the Olympics now, are using cannabis-based products to actually help with their training and their lifestyle. So you've got this real thing. I mean, you've got this stories of athletes coming together to use cannabis-based products because of the endocannabinoid system, the very essence of why all this works. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. On the one hand, the White House is saying it's illegal federally. On the other hand, it's going into bat to say, we want our athletes to have access to cannabis-based products. So at some point, the federal government will make it legal, and then the floodgates will open. Now, let's have a look at the UK news on cannabis. Let's just have a quick look at that. So here we are, just a few articles. We have a man who smoked cannabis, was over the drive limit, 3 days after he said he consumed it. This is a really important point, because medical cannabis, if you are driving and over the 2 nanogram limit per litre of THC in the blood, there is a medical defence, just like there is on any other prescribable product. In fact, that's an advantage the UK has over Australia in terms of medical cannabis. It's a highly negative story, this, but remembering, if you have a medical prescription, then you have a legal defence. It doesn't cover you for impairment, absolutely. If you're impaired while you're driving, that is a real issue. The next one is a story that's been going around for ages. These Somerset Live, Worcestershire Live sites, they all do this. It is about what you should do if you smell someone smoking cannabis next door. Well, medical cannabis, you can only vaporize. So if you are smelling the pungent aroma of cannabis, it is not medical cannabis. But there are possible ways that you would use it that would give off that smell. Now, the article, up until very recently when it was pointed out to them that there was medical cannabis and that was legally available in the UK, up until that point they just said all cannabis is wrong and should be reported to the police. And it's just such a negative story about what is potentially one of the most dynamic industries to hit the UK in decades, really decades. Now, just to kind of follow this on and move it forward, you've kind of taking on the positive news stories. We don't want to be all negative in this Friday night swipe. So here is the Daily Mail's headline. And the Daily Mail is talking about Olivia Newton-John, Saturday Night Fever, all of the films that she was in. And one of the things that has come up is that she's had cancer for over 13 years, and yet cannabis has kept the cancer at bay. She's had it come back. She was in remission. She's had it come back, but she's fighting it with the use of cannabis-based products. And several celebrities where cannabis is legally allowed, I'm not sure any have come out in the UK. I believe Frank Field, an MP, uses it, have found the benefits. Then we come to the Mail Online. So we have a positive story from Mail Online, do a search on cannabis, all of those stories are negative. So for every one positive story, there's at least 10 or 12 negative stories. You see what we're up against? It is a real thing. But I have to say, searching down, you come across the Science article about cannabis being possibly a solution for migraines. Now, there are trials going on. There is a professor in Israel, and Israel is one of the most advanced countries, that actually says cannabis is a prophylactic for migraines, i.e. daily use of it, regular use of it, keeps migraines at bay. You have to know your cannabinoids and terpenes, but that is where the current state of research is. So we have to give credit to the Daily Mail. The UK press, pretty negative in its outcome on cannabis, but as more and more people start to get prescriptions and move forward and find the real benefit, this will change. Contrast and compare that to the Australians. Now, the Australian cannabis industry is in a similar kind of place to where the UK one is, and this particular news story is about Aussie scientists who have genetically sequenced the DNA of cannabis. So they've actually come up with a genetic code. One of the things it says here, and this is really, really important, in fact, let's make sure you can see that not all varieties of cannabis are the same. this is absolutely essential for you to understand. Cannabis comes in a real array. It's a spectrum of possibilities. It's a medical medicine chest. It is really an exciting possibility. That's why on a Friday afternoon, you have to wind down. So let's just have a look at the science of the thing. Now, science is a really interesting area for cannabis, because all of the focus is now on the science, understanding the endocannabinoid system, understanding cannabinoids, understanding terpenes, the interaction of all those. New Scientist. So one of the UK's premier science publications, or popular science publications, it's just published a story on that cannabis was domesticated, cultivated in northwest China around 12,000 years ago. So effectively, cannabis has been in the population, used by the population for the benefit of the population for 12,000 years. It's only in the last 100 years that it has been demonized, and the whole kind of prohibition of cannabis has been such a detriment to society. We will in future editions of the Friday Night Swipe, we'll look at what the detriments have been. But again, 12,000 years ago, in China, they were using cannabis medically. We've got to learn from that past. Now this one's really interesting. This is something that has the potential to change all of our lives. It's actually about AI intelligence. So this is a company called DeepMind, a UK company owned by Google. So what they've done is they've developed an AI program called AlphaFold. Now, this is really interesting. It comes back to the endocannabinoid system. The endocannabinoid system are G protein coupled receptors. So it's all about proteins. Now what AlphaFold is about is analyzing, working out the folds in proteins in biology. So this is a real breakthrough. This is the fourth industrial revolution kind of stuff. This is where AI and cannabis. So we're going to the future, but we're learning from the past. It's the potential of this is just amazing. Other things are happening. So all over Europe, change is happening everywhere. It's so exciting. So North Macedonia used to be part of Yugoslavia. In fact, Eastern Europe is really embracing cannabis and the industry of cannabis really widely. So what's going on in North Macedonia? North Macedonia is changing its regulations. There's going to be a whole series of change of regulations. They're trying to be one of the export centers in international cannabis. The predictions for international cannabis range quite widely, but basically the industry is really going to take off. Another thing that's happened in Europe, as of yesterday actually, is that France has put a new decree together which is going to allow French farmers to produce CBD flower, so flower from hemp to produce CBD. Currently, the UK does not allow for that to happen. We are at an industrial disadvantage. How long can the UK government, how long can Boris Johnson, the man who says we are a science superpower, we are supercharging everything. So here we have the endocannabinoid system, one of the real breakthroughs in medical research, which by the way is still not taught in the majority of medical schools here, because the GMC, the General Medical Council, do not make it a requirement. It's absolute madness that one system that kind of controls all of the other systems, and you don't teach doctors, even to this day, probably 50% of the doctors emerging from medical schools still have no understanding. Yet there are medical professionals that we work with every day that are at the cutting edge of this science, and the kind of discoveries and developments they are making are just incredible. The research moving forward is really, really powerful. So the one thing to take away from this is change is coming. Absolutely, change is coming. So there are two things currently happening. More and more clinicians are coming out and explaining about the endocannabinoid system. And I urge you to share this as much as you possibly can, because understanding your endocannabinoid system is so important. One of the things is you can eat different foods that actually enable your body to create endocannabinoids, the molecules your body uses in the endocannabinoid system, anandamide 2-AG. You can actually use diet to adjust the production. So that, coupled with exercise, which is the National Institute of Care Excellence guidelines on pain prescribing, the green prescribing revolution. They do highlight cannabis, but they say there is not enough research about it. Let me tell you, the research is coming. Now, is it that we are more restrictive, as we have been for the last 100 years, or are we looking at the real world evidence and moving forward? The choice is absolutely, it's not the individual to make yet, because it is still an option of last resort. If you have tried, if you have a documented condition and you have tried to market authorized treatments, pharmaceuticals, then you can move forward and get a medical cannabis prescription, but that's still not available on the NHS. It is still only a private prescription. It costs money. The evidence base will change and the NHS will move forward. So the more people that will actually take it on, the quicker we can actually harness the fourth industrial revolution. And cannabis needs to be at the heart of this. One, because, and this is another really important point, if you're a professional and you're, well, everyone suffers from burnout. It is a documented condition now. The problem is that burnout can happen at any time, but the endocannabinoid system is one of the major defenses the body has against burnout. So understanding that and moving forward and living the best life you can to enhance your endocannabinoid system and using phytocannabinoids from cannabis gives you the best option. Quick run round things in the cannabis industry this week. We'll be doing more of these, but just to come to the final solution, what really grinds my gears is the way that cannabis is reported. There is no balance, there is no science, there is no understanding. You tell me the last time you saw a report on cannabis that talked about the endocannabinoid system. They don't, generally. And that's just the way it is. It's confirmation of bias. So, on that note, and seeing as how it's Friday, I will grind my gears, utilizing my grinder, and I shall sign off for now. Thanks so much. See you next week. Bye-bye.